My name's Elizabeth McConaghy. My title, I suppose, now is author, but previously was a member of the RAF for 17 and a half years. Managed to get to Iraq, age 21 actually. I was the youngest aircrew to go to Iraq. Did 2 there and then 10 deployments to Afghanistan. And the highlight for me was definitely MERT. So that's the Medical Emergency Response Team, which is essentially the flying ambulance. The bat phone would ring, we'd take down all these details, we would sprint out to the aircraft, spin the aircraft up as quick as we could, engineers would be helping. Most of the time you'd get very minimal information to begin with. And injuries in Afghanistan don't just happen by accident, so it's usually the troops in contact or there's been an IED of some format, so that you know most of the time you're kind of going into somewhere that's pretty tasty where you're going to land on. On the way back to Bastion, then we'd ask the medics if they wanted us to go slow and fast, just quickest way home, or high and steady if it was a head injury or something that needed stabilised. From something that really was born out of a quite low and dark time, to have something so positive come out of the back of that is amazing. And I think, I always describe my time in the Air Force as the best of times and the worst of times, but it's the contrast of both of those that hopefully make for an interesting read in the book. Life has to be colourful and it has to have good and bad to make it worthwhile. So yeah, pretty excited really. I say routinely that the Chinook is the love of my life. I mean, it was the only aircraft I ever flew on in the Air Force, and whenever we go through basic training, you have to give a dream sheet and you list like 3 aircraft that you want to go on. And mine was Chinook number 1, 2 and 3. It was all I ever wanted to fly on. I mean, mainly that was because from a crewman's point of view, it's the biggest aircraft with the biggest shop floor. As a crewman, it gives you a lot of challenges. It's like a bad game of Jenga sometimes, because you're like, oh my God, where are we going to put all this stuff? And you make it fit. It's the sound of freedom is what the troops call it, and that's for a very good reason. It's them being taken off the battlefield the majority of the time, or getting home after a 3-week exercise in Salisbury Plain. The book is kind of twofold really. Hopefully the first half is a really inspirational story of how awesome the forces can be as a career, not just for females but for anyone. It really was, if I could have anything in life, it would be a rewind button and go back and start and do it all again. So hopefully that comes across. But certainly the second half is very much, the girl who always used to tell everyone it's important to talk. And I used to be there for the guys who used to come back from some of the MERT shouts and be really, really upset. And old mum here was the one who would take them all in, get them a brew. And I never listened to my own medicine, never took my own advice. In August 2020, I woke up one day and I kind of want to describe it as a out-of-body experience, because I felt so detached emotionally from myself at this point. And I decided that I was going to end my life. I actually woke up 2 days later in Basingstoke intensive care on an incubator machine, and had been taken in by an ambulance crew, and it turns out that I had actually called at 10 to 1 in the morning. So clearly something inside me still wanted to fight. I did some stuff with PTSD resolutions and then Help for Heroes, and kind of put all those files that I chucked everywhere that day back in my head in the right order. And I think most importantly, I read and acknowledged all of those incidents and the trauma, and acknowledged it, and then put it back away somewhere at the back of my brain where it's going to stay. And then the book. So I then started writing just to get loads of stuff out of my head and onto paper. I wrote a lot of poetry and started writing just, day one joining the Air Force. And 3 weeks later, finished what was essentially a book. And hopefully the second half of the book can really show people that it's just so important just to, as soon as you see the signs, just to tell someone. There are numbers out there that you can just text and say I'm struggling, or just reach out to someone else like me who, who's had a similar experience. I think most of us in the forces will say that you kind of join to do a job. So, that's where you want to go. You want to go and you want to fulfill your purpose.